All right, guys. I'm gonna get started here. I kind of forgot a little bit to ask for questions in advance. So feel free to post any of those if you've got any questions. My big goals for tonight are I got a lot of requests as to I've kind of recently been getting a lot of questions about a lot of tickers that aren't particularly liquid, and a lot of guys want to short stocks that are up big, and that's primarily what I do. But I've been getting a lot of just kind of random tickers with hardly any volume and just kind of out of left field. So what I'm trying to do is go over, in my opinion, the best way to scan for, as well as kind of isolate and whittle down to the best. Let me get rid of this. To the best stocks to trade each day, because especially if you're like me, and I think a lot of the guys in this webinar, you're not necessarily sitting in front of the screens all day. And if you try and sit there and watch, it's basically impossible to sit there and watch 10, 15, 20 tickers like a lot of guys do. So the goal is to pare it down to, my goal is 5 to 10 stocks each day at the most, and ideally even less. I'm trying to keep it under 5, but I think a common mistake a lot of guys makes is they try and follow everything from a 20-cent stock to a $20 stock to a $200 stock. And what I'm looking to do is, and I think a lot of, if you're here, if you're a day trader, swing trader, you're trying to pin it down to just catching the meat of the move. I am not the kind of trader that's looking to get, all of the retracement or all of the breakout or multi-dollar moves. I want quick in and out based on based on just again the meat of the move. I want to nail. The best way to put it is it's just nail and bail. And I think that yes, you can trade. You can long or short illiquid stocks, and you can catch big moves. But you're just as likely to get caught with your pants down and take a loss or get trapped in it, and that's not what I want to do. I want just the biggest movers of the day that I'm going to be able to get the biggest and best moves out of. So that's the goal for today, is to show you through the last 7 or 8 years. I've got a collection of resources. None of this is proprietary or anything, but I'll follow up with a blog post with links to a lot of the stuff. But most of them are free, and the rest are cheap. And it's just I've found that I've been able to develop a pretty good system to just pare it down to finding the most liquid and best tradable stocks. So again, feel free to post questions in the webinar if you want, and I'll answer those at the end. But I'm just going to kind of run through my process and see if I can kind of relay that, and hopefully you guys can get some value out of that. So biggest thing that I'm doing each day is just, I'm looking at the biggest percentage gainers of the day. And really, if you want to do that, because again, whether or not you're looking to short or buy, I don't think there's any odds in following any of the washouts, any of the big tankers of the day. I know guys do that, but I think long or short, you got to focus on the biggest percentage gainers of the day, the biggest movers with the most volume. So it's kind of, it's as old school as it can get. This is like 1997 day trading type stuff here, but just the Yahoo Finance biggest percentage gainers. Every day, this is the first place I go after the close to see what I missed. Now, you won't see everything in here. A lot of stocks drop out of this scan, but at times that's almost a good thing, because you want, especially as a short seller, you want the stocks that the most eyeballs are watching. So just because maybe there's not some of these OTCs or pink sheets or anything like that in here, but I think that's a good thing. I want the stocks with the most eyeballs. So Um, just from today, obviously DWRI or DRWI Dragon Wave. This was up on big news of, well, not big news, but press release about some 5G stuff. But this has been a big runner last few days. Let me bring up a chart of that. It's been it's relatively low float. It's got a bunch of volume, and this is the kind of stock that shoots up. About a week or so ago was a great short on that $10 fail. Now it's coming back, and I mean this is the kind of stock that brings in more guys, and I'm looking for a short on that. So this is on my list, is what I'm getting at. Big chart, big move. We can go back a little bit. There's not a whole lot of on the daily, not a whole lot of history there, but you can see that going back on the weekly, that $10 fail was pretty solid right here last time it failed. So I would be looking for continued move into that, more fading volume, and then look to get short into that. So then I just run through the list. Now big thing is volume. You got to focus on the volume, because I think that's a lot of guys, especially when they're getting started, they're looking for these charts that are up big, and they overlook the volume. I mean, anything under these ones around 500,000 shares I'm mildly interested in, but 500,000 is about my cutoff. Is you need that, especially if you're talking a dollar stock like this JR. That's got to come off the list. If it's a little higher price stock, maybe. But biggest thing I do is I run through these and look for stocks that are up huge, ideally 15 to 20% or above, and have volume. LEU, well, I mean, that one's kind of that's mildly interesting. RPRX is obviously the huge one of the day. I mean, you can see, RPRX is definitely the trade of the day. I mean, 67 million shares traded on that, and it's a complete, it's potentially one of the biggest pieces of shit in the stock market right now. I was just bummed that, there's my mistake today. I didn't trade it today was simply because of the ridiculous volume. I mean, the float got rotated over and over and over again. And I really thought that this thing had a potential to get to 4. And then I would have short sold. Now, of course, I missed it at 350 intraday. It was a great setup in that it was all day. It kind of got stuck in this channel, this $3 to 320 channel. And then you just got over and over fails at 320, fails at 320, and then it ate shit into the close. And it's probably going to, this thing will probably be below 2, probably be in the 1s tomorrow. But again, that even going back to yesterday, huge. Let me jump back. Huge volume yesterday as well. Float rotated over and over again. Now, I don't think it was anything like nothing, volume was nothing like today, obviously, but it went from 99 cents to like 250 yesterday on, obviously look at the volume. I mean, huge volume. So that's the kind of stock I'm looking to short, and then that's going on my watch list. So other than that, if we're emulating a scan for the night, those are the only two, DRWI and RPRX for tomorrow. And then I'm moving on. So the next place I go is I've got a list of stockfetcher scans, and I've got these on my blog, but I'll repost them for this webinar. But the biggest one that I use all the time is, let me get this out of the way. Is this just it's a plain percentage gainers scan. You can kind of see, I think this is recording in HD, so you should be able to see this, but it's just show stocks where the close gain more than 20% over the last day. It's between $1 and $20, and the day range is above 3, and volume is more than 100,000. So this catches a lot of stocks on most days. Now, not a ton today, but again, this is my second stop, and I'm running through these. Obviously, you're going to get some overlap. DRWI freeze and ignore. It's like a 200-to-1 reverse split. CBDS is interesting. I believe that is weed. Let me check. CBDS, I'm almost positive, is weed related, which weed is, for you old folks out there, is dope, ganja, the cannabis. which of these dope stocks are getting hot again on the OTC side, especially. So this is actually a good example of something that I'd be looking to probably buy tomorrow, simply because. Oops, hold on. Come on, wait. Just because weed is hot right now, and it's an OTC stock, and it's kind of got some support down here in the low twos. Big move. Normally I would be a little more short bias on this, but simply because weed is hot right now, that one is that's a long watch for me. Um, and then Ringo, not enough volume. Ringo's kind of a previous runner, but I mean, not enough volume. These other two are junk. Then I've got a couple other scans that are very similar, but again, I'll post these. So I've got this Mike Wagner scan here. Price is greater than 30 cents, less than five, over 100,000, and then close was greater than 35% above the 20-day EMA. This will grab a lot of these lower price movers. Santa, I kind of forgot about Santa. So we get into the kind of penny stocks. Too cheap for me, but decent setup. TRTC, TRTC is weed as well, I believe. TRTC. Yep, hydroponic stuff. So TRTC is weed as well. So that's another, even though I typically don't trade 30-cent stocks, that one's interesting to me. Big volume, 10 million shares. SID, this was my main short watch from yesterday, and this showed up on this exact scan yesterday as well. So the only bummer was I wanted a little more continuation of this. It closed at 375 yesterday. This was I was hoping for fours to get short. I mean, it yanks pretty hard today. Good chance it continues to fade all the way back. I have no. This is some foreign ADR. I have no idea what it is, but again, I'm just looking for these big charts, big volume to look. To put these on a watch. EBIO, that is the biggest. Let me get a real time chart. EBIO is the biggest mover in the after hours. I mean, it's got a big was huge today. Closed at what 56 79 right now. So I don't know. I don't see any news. I mean, I'm not going to dig that hard, but what I would normally do is and I'll do it later tonight before I decide whether I'm short or long bias on this is I'll look for new substantial news. If there's real news, then this is I mean, good chance that this thing continued to run. If it's bullshit news, I mean, look at this long-term chart. This thing was $14 back a year ago, and I mean, it's just fades. So depending on the news, but again, we're just building a watch list right now. So CPST not up enough. And when I say this is a good example. So as a predominantly short seller, I'm looking for stuff with enough quote unquote meat on the bone. I mean, CPST, sure, it's up a lot, and this is actually a common question I get from a lot of guys that are following too many stocks. Okay, I mean, sure, this thing's up pretty big, but what are you going to do as a short seller? I mean, what's your best case scenario? This thing pulls back to 175, 160s. There's not enough meat on the bone, so this one gets passed over. Unipixel, ah, pretty consistent chart. How's our volume look? If this thing had follow through volume today, I'd probably look to buy this. But you can see that the volume is just half of what it was yesterday, so that's off the list. And then now we're dropping down into under a million shares. I don't care anymore. So what I would be doing normally is either a spreadsheet or in my blog, I'm just writing these tickers down as the ones I want to watch. So, we've got up to, I didn't write these down as we go, but I mean, we're up to what, 3 or 4 tickers now. And I want to keep it under 10. So, RPRX shows up again on this. Free shows up again on this. Now, you're going to get a lot of these repeats over and over again, but that is where lots of times that's where I kind of build my conviction. If a stock shows up on half a dozen different scans, then I'm going to get more serious about it. If it's just some random fluke that shows up on one scan, then maybe I'm not as convinced. So the 2-day percentage gainer, this one I use a lot. This one I'm grabbing a lot more higher price stocks. Dust, gold ETF, no thanks. RPRX again. GoPro, I'm actually, I hate to say it, but I'm cautiously long bias on this. It's just so beat down. They had some positive Apple news, or they hired some guy from Apple. So GoPro, I'm interested in this. It would be if it could, if it can continue this move into the mid 14s, I'd consider a buy on that. JDST, more gold ETF. I don't trade ETFs. Especially triple leveraged ETFs. There's guys that do it and successfully, and you can get. If you want range, the triple leveraged ETFs are where you'll get the range, but it's just not consistently repeatable. DWRI again, looking for tomorrow. I'm hoping for some sort of push to get short into. Today was a nice move that I'd probably consider long, but I'm just more and more short biased on this the more I see it. Phelp, not enough meat on the bone for me. ATHX, nope. And then now we're down in the low volume. And then the last one has been one of my favorites through the years, but anymore hasn't been as reliable. But it's the old school red candle floaters. This thing was a muddy scan from way back when, and probably if I had to pick any scan that has made me more money as a short seller, this one is it. Now this year it doesn't seem to be as consistent, but I still run it every day and still look for tickers here. So CHK is a oil and gas that probably bankrupt or soon to be bankrupt. Not enough. It's off. It's from 2 to 6, but it's too real. PBR kind of same thing. ETE, ETE is pretty shitty as oil and gas goes. I will. This is going on watch. Just because oil and gas every day it seems there's another bankruptcy. ETE is a piece of shit. GoPro. So now I'm a little, now my GoPro shows up on my fader scan. So now I'm less biased to go long on this, and that's kind of what happens as you go through these is you've got to build a thesis. None of these one scan am I going to look at it and say, okay, yes, I'm doing this, or yes, I'm doing that. This is an hour-long process that I do each night or each morning that I run through and build conviction. So you can see that I just basically flipped conviction on GoPro because now it showed up on this fader scan, and I've seen over and over again that when they show up in the scan, they either go sideways or they fade. So GoPro's off my list now. US Steel, this is what I would call the today's candle was too tight. I want to see more range. I will keep this on watch, though I highly doubt I would trade it unless it gets a real hard pull. PBR, Fannie Mae. I hate to trade Fannie Mae, but this is interesting. Now, there is some positive news. I don't remember exactly what it was, but some sort of ruling or whatever. But Fannie Mae's on FNMA is on the list. This is a interesting chart, and it's got a good potential to pull hard once once ever if anything bad comes out or there's some selling comes in. then there'll be a rush to exit on this stock. ECA, AKS, another AK Steel. This is, you can see it's basically the exact same chart as X US Steel. Um, Probably not. I'll probably ignore that. CLF, another natural resources play. Not in love with that. And now we're just kind of getting into sideways stuff. So those are the. I've got a bunch more of stockfetcher scans, but those are the four or five I go through every day. So now I've got 5 stocks. So where do I go next? Little plug, the second place I always go after I hit Yahoo Finance and I hit stockfetcher is the Investors Underground scan by Nate. Nate is a not, not, I would say, I guess, a predominant short seller. Maybe not as biased as I am. I mean, I'm probably 80-20, 90-10. Nate's probably 70-30, 60-40. But this is the second or the third place I always go. I highly recommend Investors Underground. I'll post a link if you want to look into it. But again, huge time saver here in that Nate's running a lot of the same scans I am, but he's got a great eye for, he's got a ton of experience and he's got a great eye for short sells. So I run through here in myself. I'm looking for the cheapy shitty stocks. So this is last night's scan. SDRL's interesting to me. CHK, GPS. No, Gap. It's real. It's retail. It's $25. Nugget gold ETF. So I just run through these real quick, and I'm looking for the RPRXs that are cheap. They're junky. The potential short sells. So after I run through that list, again, I'm looking for, one of the reasons I run my stockfetcher scan and I go to Yahoo Finance first is I want to build a base of my own tickers. Then I'm going out and I'm reaching out to the veteran traders. So I'm looking to, after I've got my kind of rough draft, for lack of a better term, now I'm going to Nate and I'm looking, okay, do any of his watches match up to mine? Does he have potentially the opposite thought of what I have? And then, like a good example is CHK. I talked about this today with Nate. He's pretty biased on this as a long, and I'm not majorly, but I'm pretty biased as a short. So in essence, because of the confliction and the lack of conviction on my part, again, you look at, when I say meat on the bone, there's just not that much here. Maybe it goes to mid fives. So by looking at his list, I now take this off the list. So I didn't trade CHK today. Probably won't trade it tomorrow, simply because I don't see the potential there. So then I run through that list. I line those up with mine, knock them off, add some. Then I move on to a great resource that I've put together over the last 7 to 8 years. Is I have a what I call watch list builder. So you're going to see a lot of bullshit because it's after hours. Because a lot of these guys, it's after hours, so they're posting beer pictures and other crap. But so I once I go here, now I'm running through and I'm looking for, these guys are all the veteran traders. A lot more beer, obviously, but so guys like, let me, a perfect example, one I look at every night is Emil Kuzmain, I think is how you pronounce that. But every night he's posting, not every night, but almost every night he's posting watches. So I'm looking at what he's got on his list as well. So let's go to last night, and you can see CHK shorting pops to 620 for more unwind. Okay, that was my thought last night. Again, I didn't end up trading it today. I kind of took it off the list. GoPro WTW week open red to green. Those were my plans today. Again, before I saw his. Not so much Weight Watchers, but GoPro I was. RPRX, watching 3 for short sell. Obviously it ran through 3, but it's at 260 after hours. That was a good call. Sid, and I actually talked with Emil about this today again. Sid, we both wanted to push to 4 and then backside. We didn't get it. I'm not sure if he traded it or not, but this is another resource. This is free. He's posting these publicly on the Investors Underground blog. And another big one that I've got on this list that posts almost every night is Phil, Ozark Trades. And so he does, this is again, we're going back to last night. He typically doesn't do any sort of thesis or explanation. He just throws out tickers. But you can see, we're going back to last night, but RPRX, SID, Fannie Mae, CHK, a lot of these tickers that I was watching yesterday. So just building a bias and building a plan around what some of these other traders are doing. And so again, I'll post this list, but not to just kind of go over and over again, but I've got a very solid list of guys. I mean, Grattani's another great one. The days he's trading, he's posting his watches. So actually, see, he's usually kind of right on the ball. He posts these right after close. So here we go. Got a good list. I mean, we got RPRX, we got DRWI, BTUQ. I mean, I'm not gonna. That's Peabody Energy. They're bankrupt. I'm not trading bankrupt. It's what is it? 20 cents. No, 80 cents. But it's a bankrupt. That's not my type of thing. But TRTC again, weed, and then EBIO. I mean, everybody's going to be watching EBIO tomorrow. That's the big runner after hours tonight. So, so those are the kind of the big ones that I'm running through each night between Yahoo Finance or FinViz. I mean, FinViz is just as good, and a lot of guys like it even more. You can do you can play with scans, all kind, but when I'm using FinViz, I mean, I just use the free version, and I'm going to the top gainers. They're sorted highest to lowest, and I'm just running through. Sunny was an interesting play today. Here's DRWI again. The one thing you kind of got to do is filter by volume, but here's RPRX again. The more you see these show up, the more biased or more interested you should get, whether long or short. Here's a good example. MICT, what's the volume on this? It's dog shit. So that's an ignore. So you can filter by the volume. Chris, that one's a former runner. Might be interesting. So you can see how these stocks show up some places and don't show others. So you got to build this process. Then the last one I will kind of touch on is there's kind of two products that are very similar. I've used Equity Feed in the past, which is a solid product. It's a real-time scanner. And I really, I used it most during the day, but it's also effective after hours. And then recently I've kind of switched to Stocks to Trade, which is very, very similar to Equity Feed. But the nicest thing I like about it is a during the day as well as after hours scanner, in that you've got a lot more, you can kind of, you got a lot more criteria you can scan based on. But especially during the day, I really recommend a real-time scanner, whether it be Equity Feed or Stocks to Trade. They're the two best, in my opinion. They're both very similar. I've never seen, DAS Trader has the biggest gainers and has the high of the day list, which is useful, but you just get so much that shows up in there. It's kind of got a limited value to a certain extent. So now I've run through all these resources. I've got my list of 5 to 10 stocks, and The last step I take, and I think this is something that is often overlooked, and I think there's great value in it, is every day every day you build a watch list. Whether you do that in WordPress, Evernote, spreadsheet, notebook, whatever it is, always go back, because especially as a short seller, I mean, I'm looking for breakdowns and fading volume, and stocks that are starting to pull back and have the potential to pull back hard. So what I do, and whether you use this, you know, I'm not trying to get you to follow my blog or my Twitter, but I post every day. I post my watch list with this kind of, I think, pretty useful list. I plug them all into this full list from Yahoo Finance. And what this does is I can go back, every day and hit that. And what that does is it's just a one-click way for me to go back 1 day, 2 days, 3 days, usually not much more than a couple days. But I can now see, okay, what did my watches from today, or, in essence, normally I do it in the morning, sometimes at night, but what I'm looking at is, okay, say I'm doing it in the morning. Okay, what did my watches from yesterday do? So I can see Fit, G Pro, okay, not much. RPRX, obviously the big mover. CHK pulled a little bit. SID came back quite a bit. But I can see that now, if for whatever reason, obviously RPRX is showing up everywhere, but for whatever reason, if it didn't, I can see, oh, okay, I forgot about RPRX because that didn't show up on my big gainer scans. Or even, CHK showed up on my red candle floater, but didn't show up on any of the big gainer scans. Now, I mentioned it's got not enough meat on it, but say this was some big chart and it was starting to pull back, I can see, okay, what did CHK do today? Okay, it was basically flat, closed on 6 again, seems to close on 6 almost every day. After hours, pull back a couple cents. I can now decide whether or not these tickers from the last couple days, I then want to bring them forward. Now, really, I keep getting wishy-washy on Fit and G Pro. It's tomorrow's Friday, it makes me a little long bias maybe on a couple of these, but only if, what I'm going to do is set alerts, and only if they move will I consider going long. RPRX, keep saying it over and over again, it's showing up. But and then the nice thing is I've got all the news here. Well, not all the news, but at least the Yahoo Finance news. I mean, I can see that. I mean, GoPro is always pretty active, but I mean, you can see that. Geez, what are there 30 stories today on GoPro? Does that maybe make me think that I'm interested in it as a, what's this Fit? Fit, it's got an 8K out here. Oh, they're subleasing office space. Whoop-de fucking do. So anyway, I was hoping that was something interesting, but anyway, it's a good way to check the news. I mean, it could have been something much more substantial than a leasing office space with Charles Schwab. But so that's again, as a resource. I post these every day. You can sit there and go back through, and especially, I'm not saying you got to read any of my commentary, look at any of the charts, but you can hit that link, and I'm posting every day pretty much the biggest moving stocks under 20 bucks. So if you want to be a little lazy and just find those, they're there, and you can also use that historical data that way. And then, so now I'm done with my list. Okay, this has taken, I've obviously rambled on quite a bit, but it's taken half an hour. Someday, there isn't that much to check out tonight. So most days it's probably 45 minutes you've got to now winnow this list down. Now what I'm doing is I'm taking that over into my real-time charting in, I use Thinkorswim. I've gone over this in previous webinars, but this is where I'm now going to the real-time chart, and I'm going to set up alerts based on the moves I want to see. So fit, um, I've got kind of these brackets here. You know, I was kind of hoping for a little more of a continuation of a move today, but it just didn't really work out in that I thought it could break 17. Never got there. I'd be curious. You know, I've got this 1625 downside alert. I'm just kind of curious if it breaks that and then comes back. That's what when I mentioned me as well as Emil. That's that weak open red to green. It's a very consistent ABCD type setup and it basically did it today. It just never followed through. You have the you know, this is something that a lot of us were looking for. You got the weak open, it bases and then grinds back. Now it never got that red to green, so you can see it faded back. This is an ABCD type setup. Great value again. Not to plug products too much, but Nate's DVDs. He goes over this type of setup over and over again, and you know you could see that this really was, you know, not that you couldn't go long it, but it was never really a strong buy because it never got that red to green move. Now, had it gotten that, you get that weak open washout, grind back through 17, and that's why I had this alert at 17. I set this, I don't know when. I don't know if you can tell. I don't think you can, but had it cracked 17, this thing's got a good potential to move. Obviously, if you've been following Fit, you know it's a big chart. You know, $50 a year ago. You can see even on this long-term chart, if it cracks 17, it's got the potential to run. But that's what I'm doing after I'm done building the watch list. So because now what happens is what you'll find in volatile penny stocks, and this kind of goes back to the whole point of this webinar, and what I started with is you only want the stocks that are moving, okay? DWRI could just do nothing tomorrow. So if this thing ends up trading, you know, 200,000 shares, I don't care because that's the point where it's going to go sideways. So what I'm going to do is let's use DRWI as an example here. So you've got this fade, big move, positive news this morning. You know, customer trials. You know, they pumped it out a couple times today. So, you know, I just can't get myself to believe in this stock. So I'm short biased. So I'm going to look for a level that I would like to get short at. So if it can get, you know, if I can get this, man, I don't know if it's going to, this one's tough. You know, I'm going to set an alert at 8 just so I know if it gets through 8, I'm interested. I highly doubt I would short in the 8s, but if it can push through that, I would at least want to know so that I could come back and reassess tomorrow. Same thing if it breaks down through 650, then I want to know, because if the hype is over, selling comes in, and this thing breaks down through 650, then it's got a good chance to hit 6, and then mid 5s are next. So we're kind of getting up towards the time limit here. So that's what I'm looking to do on each stock is after I bring them down to a manageable list. And I think that's, again, what you got to do, especially as a part-time trader, as a beginner, or somebody that I mean, if you've got a, you know, 15 monitor setup and you can follow 50 charts, then hats off to you. And you're probably not in this webinar because you're not, you know, if you're that advanced, you're not looking to pick up anything from me. So what I'm trying to help out is kind of the beginner to intermediate guy, or even if you've got a bunch of experience, the part-time guy, and that's what I am. I mean, I'm not looking to stare at screens 8 hours a day. I only want to trade DRWI as an example if it's going somewhere. So now I've got my bracketed alerts, and if this thing bangs around between 750 and 7 all day tomorrow, I don't care. And I'm not wasting mental energy. I'm not wasting time. I can trade other stocks. I can do other things. I can scan for other setups, but I'm not wasting time on this one. So, and then EBIO, let's do this one as an example too. I do want to, I'm not going to do it right now, but I do need to do some due diligence on this one because I don't know why it's up, or if it's real news or BS news, but just long time beat down chart. So I guess at this point, as much as it is down, I'm probably long bias on this, and I would use VWAP, which I need to write that down. That's something I'm kind of learning from and experimenting with a little bit. Swede Pilot, which is another great follow, George Dunn, for these kind of low float runners. And basically, I would trade this around VWAP. Now, I'm not going to get into that. That's probably a whole nother webinar. But depending, I mean, you can see VWAP's way down here. Depending on what happens tomorrow, I would look to long this if it can hold VWAP or reclaim VWAP. So again, not to get too far into that, but that's the plan for tomorrow. What RPRX? That's another good one. So RPRX is complete dead meat at this point. So I would. This is something that there's so much volume, so many bag holders over the last few days that I'm not going to chase this down. Now, could you short this at 250 and make bank? Very, very good potential. But I don't like, something like this with that much volume and that much interest. I mean, this is probably the most watched stock over the last couple of days. Now, it made an army of bag holders probably, but I'm only looking to short this if it can run, squeeze out all the shorts that piled into this pull earlier today. Guys that are shorting it, into the close for a gap down. I want to get those guys squeezed out. So my VWAP's at 3. I'm going to set an alert there. If it can get there, I'm interested. Okay. Doesn't mean I'm shorting it, but if RPRX opens up tomorrow at $1.80, there's no play for me. Okay, I'm not going to buy the bounce, and I'm not going to short it if it's down that much. So it's on ignore unless it reclaims 3, then I reassess. So those are the biggest things I want to just kind of recap before I wrap up here is whether you use the resources I've posted, whether you use my blog, whether you develop your own scans, only focus on the biggest movers with volume. Okay, you can't I mean, trust me, I've shorted stocks that have traded 200,000 shares a day and made $1 a share because they drop out of sight out of the blue. But they can, when they're that low volume, they can just as easily go against you. They're unpredictable. You got to focus on stocks with volume because that's the only way you can get a tight spread where you can get out if you need to. You're not trading against yourself. I mean, you trade illiquid stocks and your own buys or sells you'll be basically trading against yourself, for lack of a better term. So focus on the most liquid plays of the day. Then each night, whether you use Thinkorswim, it's a great resource, some other utility, some other program, set your alerts, and unless they do what you want them to do, ignore them. I mean, I highly doubt it will happen, but again, just like I mentioned with DRWI, if RPRX sits here between 240 and 290 or 280s all day tomorrow. I don't care, and I'm not going to spend hours watching it. It's just you could again be trading other stocks. You could be reading a book. You could be taking a goddamn nap for all. You could be improving yourself, hit the gym, whatever. But only focus on stocks with that are moving, with volume, and that are going through your price levels where you want them. Sideways stocks, nothing will eat up your time and your soul more than a sideways stock. You'll get to the end of the day, and you you uh, you might have traded it or you might not have traded it, but you'll be exasperated at the end of the day and feel like you accomplished nothing because it just went sideways. So avoid illiquid stocks and avoid sideways stocks. So okay, all right, I got some questions here. So let me run through these and then we'll wrap up. VWAP fail. Okay, so again, I think VWAP is almost a whole nother webinar, but here's a good example. Obviously, this is hindsight trading, so take it with a grain of salt. But let's use RPRX. I mean, all day today, there's a lot of guys joking that you could make $1 million buying it at 3 and selling it at 320, shorting at 320, covering at 3. So up and down, up and down, up and down. Now, what happened when it broke through VWAP? Hindsight trading, not consistent, but had you sat here and waited for that VWAP fail, you got, what do you got? 50 cents a downside. You got almost 30 cents a downside immediately. That is what is commonly referred to as, the backside of a move. So you could have lost money. You could have hated life. You could have spent, from 10 a.m. to almost 2 p.m. hating life trying to trade RPRX, long or short, because it's just basically sitting here on VWAP. Once it stuffed or basically pushed the short, squeezed the shorts out. I mean, look at this volume, huge volume right here. Let me go to like a 5-minute and you can really see it. So you can see this big volume rip and then the pullback through VWAP. I mean, this is where the smart guys were shorting. I mean, I believe, one of the smartest out there, Modern Rock. I mean, I'm pretty sure this is where he shorted because he waited for that squeeze and then the pullback, the crack through 3 through VWAP. So without spending 45 minutes on the VWAP fail, that's what I'm talking about. And RPRX is a good example of that today. And again, tomorrow, I'll be looking at the same thing. If it pushes the 3, hangs around VWAP, and then fails, I'd look to get short into that. James, the blog, I will, so my blog is just tbowen.com. I will post, tomorrow, I'll post all of those stockfetcher scans as well as, those are really the only scans you need to post. And then I'll post a bunch of links. So, suggestions for traders with small accounts. Jorge, really, these stocks that I am trading and I am focusing on, in my opinion, are the best for small accounts. I mean, you want to focus on in my opinion, more like probably a $1 to $10 stocks with volume. Because if you've got a small account, you can, if you've got, say, a $2,000 account, you can short 500 shares, 700 shares, 1,000 shares of a $2 or $3 stock. So, not that I would recommend with a small account today shorting RPRX, but a good example. Say you've got that $2,000 account, you could have shorted 300, 500 shares into that VWAP fail at high 290s, and you cover at say you don't get the bottom, but you get close to the bottom. You get almost 50 cents. That's a $250 gain on a $2,000 account, that's pretty solid. So to answer that question in summary, the stocks that I trade, I'm not focusing on these because of the small account. I'm focusing on these because they're the most consistent and they're the ones with the biggest moves. So as a with a small account, that's what you got to focus on. I mean, you can't be trading something, like Google at, or Apple at $100 a share that moves, okay, what did Apple move today? 20 cents. I mean, what are you going to do with a small account? You're going to buy 10 shares of this and you get a 20-cent move. That doesn't work. You got to focus on the cheapies with the big moves. So, which all of my scans are those. Okay, ready? All right, thanks. So, okay, I think I got through all the questions. We're basically at an hour. I will make a point next time to promote this a little more. I did write down VWAP. I'm going to go over that a lot. I know Nate goes over that in a lot of his webinars. His are behind the paywall. Again, I strongly recommend Investors Underground is a great resource. And I will, if you don't mind, follow up on my blog. I post those scans every day, or I post watch list every day. So if you want to, what I would recommend is develop your own system, and then I mean, I've been at it for 7-8 years, but I still follow up with the veteran traders. Okay, I'm matching my list up with their list. So I recommend building your own list, then go into that Twitter list that I have, go into the paid services if you subscribe to any, and start lining up your tickers with theirs. And then, my blog, other traders, the big ones are, and we will be on my blog, that Twitter list. I've got a curated list of a lot of great traders that you can now scan and then match yours up with that. So, that's it on my list. So, thanks a lot, guys. And I am doing another members only webinar in 2 weeks, but I will do another public webinar in a month. So, and I'll make a point to promote those a little better. So, all right. Well, thanks a lot, guys.